All right. Welcome back, everybody, to a new episode of Two Fools and Fantasy Football. Today, I am Tyler, the uncool fool. And my partner in crime, Marty McReynolds, is not going to be here for the show, but he will be back very shortly. This week, I am traveling to a place far, far away, so we got to do this tonight. So I'm going to get rocking and rolling. Today, we're going to talk about week 8 booms and busts, and we're also going to talk about some stats and facts and some defenses, and also some guys who you're going to want to play this week and some guys who you're definitely going to want to stay away from. So, check this out. Brand new episode, brand new YouTube video of Two Fools and Fantasy Football. We're going to go straight into the booms and the busts. The week 8 starter game is going to be the Green Bay Packers versus the Arizona Cardinals. Green Bay 6-1, Arizona 7-0, best record ever on a Thursday night game, so kind of cool. The boom this week will be Chase Edmonds, running back for the Arizona Cardinals. The Green Bay Packers give up a total of 121 yards rushing per game. The bust this game is going to be Aaron Rodgers. You can also probably throw Aaron Jones in there too as well. I'm leaning more towards Aaron Jones more than Aaron Rodgers, just because the fact is that the Cardinals are very good against the rush defense. And so your bust this week is going to be Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Jones, the Aaron team. So going into Sunday's game, going against the 1-o'clockers, the first thing we're going to talk about is the Cincinnati Bengals versus the New York Jets. The boom in that game is going to be Joe Mixon and Joe Burrow, the booms for the Cincinnati Bengals. And the busts this game are going to be all Jets running backs. The Bengals only give up 94 yards rushing per game, so be very cautious playing any Jets running back. That would be Johnson, Coleman, and or the rookie. The next game we're going to talk about is Tennessee versus Indianapolis. Obviously, we're not going to pick either running back as a boom or a bust because you're going to play him no matter what. The boom for that game should be Carson Wentz for the Indianapolis Colts. The Tennessee Titans give up 274 passing yards a game, so look for Carson Wentz and Michael Pittman to have a great connection in this game. The bust is going to be Ryan Tannehill, quarterback for the Tennessee Titans on the other side. Indianapolis is only giving up 243 yards per game through the air. The next game we're going to talk about is the LA Rams versus the Houston Texans. Earlier today, Houston did trade Mark Ingram back to the Saints. Not really anything big. It's not going to really do anything to the Houston running game whatsoever. They're going to suck, so it doesn't matter. So now the boom this game is going to be Darrell Henderson for the LA Rams, or running back. The Houston Texans give up 146 rushing yards a game. Look for the Rams to rush the crap out of the ball. The bust this week is going to be Brandon Cooks, wide receiver for the Houston Texans. The Rams give up 260 yards passing in the air per game, but Cooks is going to have Mr. Ramsey on him all game, so good luck, Mr. Cooks. The next game we're going to go to is the interdivision matchup, the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Cleveland Dog Pound Browns. The boom for this game should be Deontay Johnson. Cleveland gives up 215 passing yards a game, so be very careful with that one. Also, too, the bust in this game is going to be all of the Cleveland wide receivers. Pittsburgh only gives up 245 yards per game passing. Pittsburgh's coming off a bye week. They're going to have a little bit more juice this week. Cleveland obviously is struggling with injuries right now. They don't have Baker. They might get back their running back Chubb. So if he comes back, it's going to be a little bit more of a different ball game. So just be very cautious playing any wide receivers from Cleveland. The next game we're going to talk about is the Philadelphia Eagles versus the winless Detroit Tigers. Do they get their first win this week? I don't know. But if I'm going on a limb, the way they played last week, it wouldn't surprise me if Detroit beats Philly. So with that being said, the boom this week is going to be DeAndre Swift for the Detroit Lions. The running back is going to go crazy. He's going to be all over the place. He's going to have a nice game. The bust this week is going to be somebody who nobody's going to start anyways. Is going to be Jared Goff. So make sure you do not play Jared Goff whatsoever. Philly is only giving up 228 yards per game to the air. So it's going to be a rough day for Detroit through the air, but it'll be a good game for them rushing. The next game we're going to talk about is the San Francisco 49ers versus the Chicago Bears. On this game, the boom is going to be Elijah Mitchell. The Chicago Bears are giving up 122 rushing yards per game, and the bust is going to be all of Chicago's wide receivers and quarterbacks. For the reason on this one is if you watch any of the Chicago Bears games, Justin Fields is struggling a lot. He's got no connection with he's got no connection with Allen Robinson. Darrell Mooney is kind of a so-so connection. So if I'm playing any Chicago Bears, if I have any of them on my team, I wouldn't play any wide receiver or quarterback this week for the Chicago Bears. They will be a bust. The next game we're talking about is the Carolina Panthers versus the Atlanta Falcons, another interdivision matchup. The boom this week will be Chuba Hubbard for the Carolina Panthers. So Atlanta's given up 113 yards on the ground per game. Carolina wants to establish their run. They want to get physical. They obviously do not trust Sam Darnold. Last week was about the worst week he can possibly get. Got replaced by a backup, and the backup got hurt. So now they don't have much of a choice. So now it's going to be Sam Darnold for week 8. And the bust this week is going to be Calvin Ridley. Carolina has one of the top 5 defenses in all of the NFL. That is going to trickle down to Mr. Calvin Ridley, so he's not going to have a very good game. So look for him to have a subpar game / bust. The next game we're talking about is Miami versus Buffalo. This is really, I took a lot of time on this one. I really had to think about who I wanted to make the boom and the bust because this was just like so tough. So the boom is all Buffalo and the bust is all Miami. So that's that. The next, by the way, interdivision matchup at home at Buffalo. Yeah. If you're a Miami fan, don't watch that game. The next game we're going to talk about is New England going to the West Coast to play the Los Angeles Chargers. The boom for that game is going to be two booms. The main one is going to be Damian Harris for the New England Patriots. Sorry, I almost said San Diego. I said it actually now. The Los Angeles Chargers are giving 163 yards rushing per game. Yeah, that's a lot. But also the boom is going to be Austin Eckler. Look for him to get lots of touches. Look for him to be running. Look for him to be passing. Look for him to be a huge part of the reason why the LA Chargers are going to win this week, and he's going to have a huge chunk of that offense. Look for the bust this week to be Keenan Allen. The Patriots only give up 245 yards passing per game. Look for a big chunk of that to go to Austin Eckler this week. The next game we're going to talk about is the Washington football team versus the Denver. We can't figure out who our quarterback is or get a good one since Peyton Manning has left town in 2016 Broncos. The boom this week is actually going to be Cortland Sutton for the Denver Broncos wide receiver. And the bust this week for the Washington football team is going to be Terry McLaurin because he is going to have a tough matchup against a secondary that only gives up 224 yards per game. That's going to be really, really rough. The next game we're going to talk about is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming off a smoking win against the Chicago Bears, going in an interdivision matchup against the New Orleans Saints, who barely won on Monday night against the good old Seattle Seahawks plus the fans, the good old 12. This week, the boom is going to be a double boom. We are looking for Antonio Brown if he plays because we're not too sure if he's going to play yet. But if he is, look for him to have a nice week this week, and also to Chris Godwin. Look for those guys who have massive weeks this week. Right now, Mike Evans is going to go against Marshawn Lattimore this week, so that is going to be a tough sled for Mr. Evans. And the bust this week, look for it to be AK-41 Alvin Kamara, one of the show's favorite guys. We love watching him play, but right now Tampa Bay is only giving up 67 yards rushing per game. And Leonard Fournette, too, as well. Look for him to have a subpar game as New Orleans is only giving up 81 rushing yards per game. So that's going to be a very interesting game to watch. Don't look for the running backs to rush for a lot of yards. The next game we're talking about is the Dallas Cowboys going to play against the Minnesota Vikings. This should be a really good game. This is going to be an offensive-sided game, to say the least. The boom this week should be Justin Jefferson. Dallas gives up almost 300 passing yards per game. Look for Double J to have a lot of the yards this week. And the bust this week is going to be Dalvin Cook. As bad as Dallas is in the secondary, their front seven is not bad. They only give up 86 rushing yards per game. So look for Dalvin Cook to not be cooking the whole game. The next game we're going to talk about is the New York Giants versus the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a Monday night game. If you are knowing what's going on now, Patrick Mahomes is struggling as a quarterback. He's thrown the most interceptions in the last 16 games, which is not a sign that you want to see as you just signed him to a $500 million contract. That's brutal. But the boom this game is going to be Damian Williams running back for the Chiefs. The New York Giants give up 126 rushing yards per game. The Chiefs hopefully figure out that they need to establish some kind of rushing game and that Patrick Mahomes cannot do everything. So, and he's overworking everything and he's overdoing too much in case, they need help, they need advice. There it is. Boom. Then the bust for this game is going to be Tyreek Hill. The New York Jets defensively, they give up a lot of rushing yards. Passing wise, they don't give up a ton. They give up 243 passing yards per game. And also the last game we're going to talk about is Jacksonville going against the Seattle Seahawks. The boom this week for that game is going to actually give you two booms. We're going to actually have Alex Collins as a boom and also James Robinson as a boom. And the bust this week is going to be Dan Arnold, tight end for the Jacksonville Jaguars. It was really hard to find the bust in that game just because the fact is both defenses are bottom 5 in the NFL. They both give up over 400 yards a game. So this could be a really weird game. This could be a very offensive plus game in the yards gained, but touchdowns might be scarce, to say the least. So it might be a very high game for field goal kickers. So maybe for fantasy advice, if you're looking at fantasy stuff, maybe look at the Jacksonville kicker or the Seattle kicker this week coming off waivers, or if you need somebody to replace Justin Tucker off the waiver wire, or Dan Carlson. I believe that's the guy for the Vegas Raiders. Speaking of that, the buys this week is the Baltimore Ravens and also the Las Vegas Raiders, which we just talked about. All right, cool. So now we're going to talk about some meat and potatoes. We're going to talk about some really cool stuff. The first thing we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about all the defenses. We're going to talk about the top defenses who give up the least amount of points to the opposing opposition. And we're also going to talk about the defense that gives up the most amount of points to the opposition too as well. But we're doing this by position. So quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. So I'm going to give you the top four, bottom four, and we're going to go from there. So now we're going to start with the quarterback. The team who, if you're seeing them play against this, you do not want them to play. These are the four hardest teams to score against. Coming in at number 4, they give up 16.3 points per week to the quarterback position. They've given up 1 rushing touchdown so far this year, 9 TD passes. It is the Arizona Cardinals. So Arizona Cardinals, they play very, very good against the cornerback. Number 3, they come in at, they give up 16 points per game. They've given up 1 rushing touchdown so far and 8 passing touchdowns. That is the Denver Broncos. Number 2 is they give up 14.7 yards per game to the opposing quarterback. They've given up none on the ground so far this year. They've given up 6 through the air. That is the New Orleans Saints. And also, too, by the way, the Arizona Cardinals play the Green Bay Packers this week on Thursday night. Denver Broncos play the Washington Football Team, and the New Orleans Saints play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So the 3 quarterbacks for those teams, they're going to have tough matchups this week. The number 1 stingiest defense to play against in the National Football League, they are giving up 11.8 points per game to the opposite quarterback. They've given up 2 rushing touchdowns this year and 5 passing touchdowns through the air. That is the Buffalo Bills. And this week they have an interdivision matchup against the Miami Dolphins. So like we were saying earlier, all of Buffalo good, all of Miami bad. Now, these are the bottom 4 teams. These are the 4 teams that you want your quarterback to play. They give up the most fantasy points to that position. Coming in at number 4 is the Dallas Cowboys. They give up 23.7 points per game. They've given up 2 rushing touchdowns so far this year and 12 touchdowns against the pass. And it looks like they play Minnesota this week. If I can read my chicken scratch correctly, and I believe I did. The coming in number 3 is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. They give up 26.4 points to the opposite quarterback this year. Per game. They've given up 4 rushing touchdowns and they've given up 12 passing touchdowns too as well. They play the New York Giants this week, so they play on Monday Night Football. Daniel Jones does rush a little bit, so this might be a very sneaky pick if you need somebody to replace Lamar Jackson this week or Derek Carr. And also, too, Daniel Jones likes to run, so this might be a very sneaky rush TD, too, as well for Daniel Jones this week on Monday Night Football against the Kansas City Chiefs. And he might break a nice big rushing game against those guys, too, as well. The second easiest team to play against is the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons give up 27 points per game to the quarterback position. This week, they're playing the Carolina Panthers. They've given up 0 rushing touchdowns, but they've given up 15 passing touchdowns. And the number one team who you want to start if you're playing against this team at your quarterback is against the Washington football team. The Washington football team they give up 31 fantasy points to the quarterback position per game this year. They've given up 2 rushing touchdowns, and they've given up 19 through the air, which is just absolutely insane. And I can't remember who they played this week. I apologize. Just bear with you for 1 second. They played the Denver Broncos. So Teddy Bridgewater, if you're looking for another guy to pick up and stream, Teddy Bridgewater would be a great option for you to play this week. Now we're going to flip it over to the running backs. We're going to talk about the top 4 teams who you do not want to play against if you have these guys. The first one we're going to talk about is going to be the New England Patriots. The New England Patriots are giving up 14.6 points per game to the running back. On the running back on the ground, they've given up 1 rushing touchdown so far this year. And they played the LA Chargers this week. And I know I said Austin Eckler is going to be a boom. I'm thinking he's getting most of those through the air and not as much through the ground. The next team we're going to talk about is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Are coming at the number 3 hardest team to rush against for fantasy footballers. They're giving up 12.8 points to the position per game. They've given up 1 rushing touchdown on the ground so far this year, and they played the Cleveland Browns this weekend. The second hardest team for running backs to get points against is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are giving up 12 points per game to the running back position, and they've also given up 1 touchdown this year. And this week they play Alvin Kamara and the Saints. And the toughest team to rush against is the Arizona Cardinals. If you have a running back against the Arizona Cardinals, they only give up 11 fantasy points on average to them. They've only given up 1 fantasy rushing touchdown this year. And this week they play the Green Bay Packers. And now the top 4 teams you want to face if you have the running back, the teams that give up the most points. Number 4, they're on a bye week this week, but it is the Baltimore Ravens. They give up 19.1 points per game, and they also have given up 8 touchdowns rushing so far this year. They are on a bye. The next team we're going to talk about is the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jacksonville Jaguars have been giving up 19.5 fantasy points per game to the running back, and they've given up 8 touchdowns this year so far, and they play Seattle, so look for Alex Collins to have a very nice day. The next team we're going to talk about is the Miami Dolphins. They give up an average of 21 points per game to the fantasy running back. They've given up 8 touchdowns so far this year, and they play Buffalo this week. So this might be a very nice game for the running backs for Buffalo too as well. So I'm thinking maybe Zach Moss might have 1 or 2 ground touchdowns this week, and maybe 1 for Devin Singletary too as well. So just saying, it might happen. The next team we're going to talk about is the Los Angeles Chargers. They gave up a whopping 23 points per game to the running backs. They've given up 8 touchdowns this year. And this week they play New England, so look for Damian Harris to have a very, very nice day. And the last team, the team who has the worst defense against the running attack, is the New York Jets. They give up 29 points per game to the running back position. They've given up 10 touchdowns this year. Not 8, 10. They're doing some awful things over there against the rush defense. And this week they play Cincinnati, so look for Joe Mixon just absolutely feast this weekend. Now we're going to go right over to the wide receivers. We're going to the wide receiver core. So this is going to be the top 4. If you're playing this defense, you do not want to have wide receivers in this week. So what we're going to do now is number 4. So we just talked about the Jets having the worst rushing points against for running backs. They're number 4 for receivers, so go figure. So they're doing something right in the secondary. The Jets are number 4. They've given up 3 passing touchdowns all year long, and they're giving up 17 points per game to the opposite wide receivers. And again, this week they play the Cincinnati Bengals. Number 4 is the Las Vegas Raiders. They've given up 4 touchdowns to the opposing wide receivers this year, and they are giving up an average of 16.9 points. They are on a bye week this week. And also coming at number 2 is the Los Angeles Chargers, believe it or not. Can't stop the run, but they can stop the pass. They've given up 3 touchdowns so far this year, and they're getting up an average of 13 points to the receiver position. And this week they play New England, so look for those points to even go down because New England really doesn't have anybody of value at receiver, to be honest with you. And the number 1 team who you do not want to start any of your receivers against is the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills have given up 2 touchdowns this year in the air, and they give up a measly 12.8 points to the opposing receivers. And this week they play the Miami Dolphins. A bonus too as well, because we have the Las Vegas Raiders on a bye. The Philadelphia Eagles, they've given up 7 touchdowns so far this year to the passing wide receivers, which gives them about 18.1 points per game they're giving up, and they play Detroit this upcoming week. So look for the Detroit wide receivers to still be kind of looking at nothing. Okay, now we're going to talk about the teams who, if you're playing against the guys, you want to start your wide receivers. These are plus matchups. The first one we're going to talk about is the Cleveland Dog Pound Browns. They have given up 9 touchdowns to the opposing wide receivers, and they're averaging 23 points a game, and they're playing Pittsburgh this week. The next team we're going to talk about is the Indianapolis Colts. They have given up 11 touchdowns through the air, and they average 24.3 points. They're giving up to the team's opposing wide receivers, and this week they played the Tennessee Titans. The next team we're going to talk about is the Chicago Bears. They've had 12 touchdowns through the air scored on this year to opposing wide receivers, and they are giving up 27 points per game to the opposite, and they're playing San Francisco this week. So if you have Deebo Samuel, look for him to have a monster game too as well. And the next team we're going to talk about is the Washington Football Team. They've given up 11 total touchdowns to the wide receivers, and they're giving up they're giving up a little over 28 points per game to the wide receiver units, and this week they're playing Denver. And the worst team against the wide receiver units is the Tennessee Titans. They've given up 10 touchdowns to the opposing wide receivers this year, and they give up on average 29.4 points to the wide receivers. So if you're playing Tennessee and you have Michael Pittman this week, he might be a top 5 play. Just saying. All right, now we're going to talk about the last group. We're going to talk about the tight ends too as well. So the teams that you don't want to face if you're going against these guys, you just not want to play you don't want to play your tight ends at all. The first team is the Denver Broncos. Denver's given up so far. This is for the whole year. I apologize. For the full year, Denver's given up 297 yards to the tight end position. They've given up 0 touchdowns. They are giving up 3.3 points per game to the tight end position. And this week they play the Washington Football Team. Chicago is next on the list. They've given up 218 passing yards to the tight end position. They've given up 1 receiving touchdown to the tight end position this year. They're averaging 3.3 points per game they're giving up, and this week they play the San Francisco 49ers. Number 2 is the New Orleans Saints. They've given up 232 yards to the opposing tight ends this year, 0 touchdowns. Opposing tight ends are averaging 3.2 points per game against them this year. Per game. Look, they're playing Tampa Bay this week. Good luck. And the number 1 team against opposing tight ends is the Arizona Cardinals. They're giving up a measly 156 yards so far to the opposing tight ends, 0 touchdowns, a big old goose egg. They're giving up an average of 1.4 fantasy points per game. So yeah, just saying. And now the teams you want to play if you were playing against them for your tight end. Coming in first is Philly. Philly gives up 382 yards so far this year to the tight end position, 6 touchdowns for the tight ends. They're giving up 10 points per game. This week they play Detroit. Look for TJ Hawkinson to keep on doing his thing. Jacksonville comes in next. At number 4, Jacksonville gives up 4. They've given up 474 yards to the tight end position this year, 4 touchdowns. They're averaging 10.8 points per game. They're giving up to the tight end position. This week they play Seattle. Houston has given up 463 yards total so far to the tight end position, 6 receiving tight end touchdowns, and they've given up about 12 points per game. This week they're playing the LA Rams, so look for Tyler Higbee to have a very nice game. The Baltimore Ravens, who are on a bye this week, have given up 545 points to the opposing tight ends, which is the most in the NFL. They've given up 6 touchdowns, which ties them for first 2 as well. The Baltimore Ravens are averaging 12.3 points per game. They are given to opposing tight ends. This week they're on a bye, And the team who has the worst defense against the tight ends is the LA Chargers. They've given up 476 yards passing through the air and 5 touchdowns to the opposing tight ends. And they are giving up an average of 12 points per game. So look for Jonnu Smith to have a very nice game as they play the New England Patriots this weekend. So just real quick, I'm going to give you the top 5 defenses. I'm going to give you the bottom 5 defenses, and then that'll be it. All right, so the top 5 defenses. Number 5 is Denver. They're giving up 224 yards passing and 98 yards rushing. Number 4 comes in from the great state of Arizona. You guys are the Arizona Cardinals, the only team that plays in that state. They're giving up 116 yards rushing and 201 yards passing. Number 3 from the great state of Carolina. They're giving up 110 yards rushing and 197 yards passing. Number 2 is the Cleveland Dog Pound Browns. They're giving up 80 yards rushing, and they're giving up 215 yards through the air. And number 1, no surprise, is the Buffalo Bills, who are number 1 in everything defensively this year. They're giving up 90 yards rushing, and they're also giving up 180 yards passing per game. Now, actually, sorry, I apologize. I said 5. We're going to give you the bottom 6 defenses here. Every single defense on this list is giving up 400 yards or more. That's why we did 6. So number 6 is the New York Jets. They're giving up 128 yards per game on the ground and 275 passing. Number 5 is the Kansas City Chiefs. They are giving up 129 yards on the ground and 276 through the air. Number 4 is the Washington football team. Our nation's capital football team sucks this year. They're getting about 105 on the ground and 300 through the air. Basically, if you're playing in the Washington football team and you have a wide receiver or a tight end, play the out of them. Number 3 is Jacksonville, who can't guard anybody either. They are a very, very sad team. They're running this so far. They are giving up 114 yards rushing this year and 298 yards passing. Ooh, yeah, good job, Urban Meyer. Maybe you should get in their lap dance. Number 2 is Seattle. They're giving 134 rushing yards per game, and passing they're giving up 231. And the last one, the team who is giving up the most yards, other than Seattle, because they're officially tied now, is the Miami Dolphins, who play the number 1 ranked defense, and they're number 32. Not a good matchup. They're giving up 118 yards rushing per game and 297 passing yards per game. This might be a Josh Allen blowout game. He might be throwing about 6 touchdowns in the first half. So just letting you know about that. So, all right, guys. So those are all the stats, facts, some good stuff about there. Some guys you want to play. If you have any questions, if you're on that borderline, anything like that. Also, the booms and busts for each week or for each game this week too as well. So we have all that covered. Again, we got the Las Vegas Raiders on a bye, and the Baltimore Ravens on a bye. So if you have those guys, obviously, if you have Lamar Jackson, Derek Carr, maybe to an extent Josh Jacobs, the Ravens have no running backs, obviously, but maybe Bateman kind of coming to his own a little bit right now. And also, too, if you have Marquise Hollywood Brown, even Henry Ruggs to an extent, and or the tight end for the Raiders, who I am drawing a blank on. I apologize. I know he's a stud, Darren Waller. I knew it was going to come to my head. So if you have any of those guys, you're definitely looking for some upgrades, some replacements. So here's some great facts, some great stats that you got to know. And also, too, if there's a tight end on the waiver wire, wide receiver, so forth and so on, you know who to pick up because you know whose defense gives up a lot of points at that particular position or vice versa. So anyways, thank you so much for checking this out. This is a really quick video. I hope y'all enjoyed this week. Please, I'm going on vacation. I'm going to be out of town. But if you have any questions, comments, concerns, complaints, anything like that, anything you'd like to see us add on to the episode, anything you want us to talk about more, also to I'm going to talk with Marty. I would really like to start doing some live stuff on YouTube, like maybe every Wednesday or every Tuesday, so we can kind of get rolling in some different things and answer some questions and kind of get you prepped up for the next week or so. So that way we can really start doing that and to really start getting some steamroll on that too as well. So anyways, let me know what you think. Put some comments in there. We'll respond right away. Let us know if you guys want us to do a live YouTube video, maybe Wednesday or Thursday or something like that. So we can, or Friday or whatever, or maybe Saturday morning. So we can kind of answer some of your questions or your comments. That way we can definitely get you in the right direction and treading. And, we can talk about facts and stats all day, and we can give you the lowdown and let you, give you the best advice. And at the end of the day, make the best decision you can for your team. So, but guys, thank you so much, ladies. Thank you so much for checking us out. Please let everybody know Spread the word about us, please. Two Fools in Fantasy Football on YouTube, on Facebook, and we are definitely going to expand and grow as this football season goes on. So, all right, guys. Well, thank you so much for checking us out, and ladies too as well. Y'all have a wonderful week. Good luck to you, and I hope y'all get the W. All right, take care. I am Tyler, the uncool fool. All right, until next time. Take care. Bye-bye.